Hi there, everybody. It is just after 2 a.m. because I am well behind schedule, what with oversleeping and all. Do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit, and let's shit in the box. I forgot to say that it is time to show up. And I'm showing up, and I'm glad you showed up, and I do appreciate each and every one of you. It's important to say that. It's very important to say that. I have no fucking idea what I'm going to talk about today. I'm just going to kind of ramble. But what's kind of been on my mind is work. And whenever I think about work, I think about economics, I think about class divisions, I think about politics. There's all kinds of shit that like comes along with that. And one of the big things is I really wish people would understand that finance and economics are not the same thing and they're not interchangeable. You can't substitute finance for economics. Finance it's an accounting methodology. Finance is how you keep track of money. Economics doesn't have anything to do with money. I mean, there's money involved in economics, but it really isn't about money. It's about how people make decisions. And finance loses that human connection. That's where you kind of break the connection between the money and the person. And really, finance is not so much about tracking money as it is about tracking currency. And currency is a proxy for money, but money is a proxy for value, and value is a proxy for work that was done in the past. Value comes from a human being doing something that somebody wanted done. Maybe it's the same human being. It's like the work of drinking a beer is work that I want done for me because I like to drink a beer. And that has value to me. But because that's all self-contained, that doesn't really matter in an economic sense. I'm going to do what's good for me and what I value, and I'm going to enjoy it, but nobody else fucking cares. What you're really concerned with is anything that starts involving multiple people. Is anything that, for example, earlier this week, I had to clean up a bunch of apples. I had every year the apple trees in my front yard drop an immense quantity of apples. Between August and September, the tree on the left drops a buttload of apples. And between September and October, the tree on the right drops a buttload of apples. And then finally November arrives and I get to relax. But on Tuesday, I got up at 8 in the morning, had myself a protein shake and a cup of coffee, and I went out and started cleaning up apples. And around noon, I came in, and I had 3 chicken cheese chimichangas, because I like that it all starts with that CH sound. I think that's kind of cool. I had 3 frozen chicken cheese chimichangas from Costco, and then I went back out, and I continued working on the apples, and around 3 o'clock, I came in, and I had 4 oatmeal raisin cookies and a big glass of milk. And then I went back out, and I finished collecting the apples. I came back in at 6, and I had 3 big slices of olive rosemary bread, again from Costco. If your Costco has the olive rosemary bread, it is delicious, and you should get it. But my point here is, if you do the maths, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. is a 10-hour day. That's a lot of fucking work. And over the course of that 10-hour day, I bagged up 14 bags of apples that are about 300 pounds each. So just over 2 tons of apples. That's a lot of fucking apples. And then yesterday, on Wednesday, I took half of those apples and I loaded them into a wheelbarrow and I trucked them up the hill next door to the horse ranch, where I delivered them so the horses can have them. Now, this originally started because one year, just after the neighbors had started their horse ranch, and they had their horses would line up at the fence and look over at us. I was out there cleaning up apples, and it used to be I would clean up the apples and I would just throw them away. And I was cleaning up the apples, and having cleaned them up, I went and I was throwing them away, and I turned around and I saw like 4 horses standing at the fence staring over at me. And it occurred to me, horses really like apples. And I felt really bad because it's like, could you imagine if you were hungry and you were staring over the fence at some dude who just like took 300 pounds of delicious treats and threw them away? So we called the neighbors. And we were just like, hey, we got apple trees, and these apple trees, they drop apples all fucking year long. Do you guys want these apples? And they went, no, we're not going to come over and clean up your apples for you, dude. We don't need that. And we had to go, no. We're going to clean up the apples. We got to pick up the apples. We got to put them in bags anyway. It's just... It's not that much trouble. We could bring the apples over to you and you could give them to the horses and the horses would be happy. That could be like a thing that you do. And they thought that was the greatest idea in the world because horses are expensive to feed. So if you could get 2 tons of horse feed every couple of weeks, it's roughly a ton a week. Is how many fucking apples these goddamn things drop. But if you could get like a ton of horse feed every week for free, fuck yeah, you're taking it. Horses are expensive. So now when that season rolls around, we take all of the apples over there. Well, I take all of the apples over there. And that has value to the neighbors. I don't get paid, but that has value to the neighbors because effectively they get to save money on horse feed and the horses get to be happy. And what I care about is that the horses get to be happy. That has some value to me, and that has some value to my neighbor, and that has some value to the horses. And it's all about whether what you do has value to other people. And horses are people. Shut the fuck up. Doing something to make the horses happy, that's good. That has value to other people. Horses are people. If the only thing you do is stuff that's valuable to you, you're not actually generating any value for the world. You have to do something that's valuable to somebody else, that somebody else is going to appreciate, that somebody else is going to like. And if you don't do that, then you're not putting value into the economy. Now, as you can see, while I have put value into the economy, there's no money that comes out of that. No money comes out of that and goes into the economy. But by delivering that value, I preserve some money that other people in the economy might have had to spend to obtain that same value. In an overall economic sense, that value has now been exchanged. But even though no money changed hands over here, money is going to change hands somewhere else. That has value to the economy. My neighbor can now spend whatever they were going to spend on horse feed on something else. Slightly different stimulus to the economy. And I've donated that into the economy for a number of reasons. The most important one being that if I don't clean up the fucking apples, we get rats. Well, I don't want rats. If I had rats, you'd need to pay somebody to get rid of the rats. I don't want to pay somebody to get rid of the rats. I want to just like not have the rats in the first place. So I clean up the fucking apples to avoid getting rats. The apples go to the horses. The horses like the apples. The neighbor likes that the horses like the apples. They like saving money on horse feed. Even though I haven't turned around, the guy who gets rid of rats would probably prefer that I pay him to get rid of rats. But all of this is value changing hands in different ways. Now, the interesting thing is that if I didn't clean up these apples, I would get rats constantly. I would have to keep paying the guy to come out and get rid of rats. And every time he came out to get rid of the rats, you'd say, you know, the reason you have these fucking rats is because of the goddamn apples. If you just cleaned up the apples, you wouldn't have fucking rats. And if I went, yeah, but I would prefer not to clean up the apples, he'd probably just shrug his shoulders and say, okay, you can keep paying me every couple of months. I don't mind. And you know, I remember New England every time. Every single time I go out there and the apples have been dropping off of the tree and I can smell that there are apples everywhere smell. It just reminds me of the orchards in New England. It reminds me of going out back when I lived in Bedford. It reminds me of going out to the orchard and picking a boatload of fucking apples and buying a shit ton of apple cider. That has a certain value too. There's a value to having the apple trees. Reminds me of when I was a kid and I used to climb apple trees. And at the right time of year, you could climb up the apple tree and it would have apples and you could pick an apple and you could eat it. And every year on Rosh Hashanah, I go out and I get an apple from my own tree. And I bring it back in and I cut it into pieces and I eat those pieces with honey that came from my neighbor's hives down the road. And that connects me to the local community and to the work that other people are doing in a way that I feel like a lot of other people are not connected anymore. People are not connecting with their communities and they're not connecting with the other human beings around them. And everybody talks about how they're so isolated. And if you don't want to be isolated, the only thing you need to do is do something nice for somebody else. Not because you want something from them, but because it's good for you to be nice to other people. There's this concept of pay it forward, where you just like, you put nice things into the world and nice things come back to you. And you know what? That's bullshit. The nice things frequently do not come back to you. You put nice things into the world because you want to be a person who puts nice things into the world. You don't want to be a fucking leech. You don't want to be a parasite. You don't want to be a drain on society. You want to do things that other people value. You want to be of use to other people. And maybe they never appreciate it. Maybe they're never your friends. Maybe they laugh at you behind your back and say you're stupid. But to be a good person is a valuable thing to you. You may never get anything in return for it. You may never get anything from anyone, ever. There is no guarantee. It's all fucking chance. Does it all even out? Sure. You know, there's a guy out there who's being the best guy in the world. And he's putting all of his best feet forward and he's doing all of this work and everybody loves him and everybody thinks he's great. And then one day he hangs himself because he's desperately unhappy. He's been miserable for years and nobody knew and nobody cared. And then on the other half of the world, well, turn on the fucking television and look at our goddamn president. Never did anything decent for anybody. Only ever acted like a complete fucking jerk, out for nobody but himself, and he's perpetually rewarded for it. He's rewarded for it with an audience and the adulation of millions and political power and economic power and huge stacks of cash. The notion that you can earn something is bullshit. Most people don't earn what they have. It never happens. There's no guarantee that you're ever going to get what you actually deserve, that you're ever going to be paid what you earn. In fact, it can be mathematically demonstrated that the amount of value you take out of the world is typically going to be less than the value that you put into it. If you put value into the world, you're probably going to get less out than you put in. And a lot of people lean in the direction of, well, if I'm just a fucking parasite and I put nothing into the world, then everything I get from the world is profit. And now my profit margin is higher than anybody else's. But nobody's going to like you, dude. Nobody's going to like you. That margin decreases. When you start putting value into the world, when you start putting effort into things, when you start adding value for other people and doing things that are useful to other people, at first you get hardly anything back. But the more value you put into the world, the more you start to get back as you develop that habit. And being in that habit will just, like, typically people will be nice to you. People will do things for you if you put value into the world. Saw a video by Tom Powell yesterday, which basically said, 25 years ago, we hired people for $25 an hour to do landscaping, and you couldn't keep white Americans on the team. And it wasn't because the money wasn't good enough. They were happy to come in and take the money. $25 an hour is perfectly good for them. The problem was the work. They didn't want to do the work. And his example was they had a bunch of planting beds that were full of river rock that needed to be filled with mulch. And there's nothing for it. You got to go to each and every planting bed, and you got to rake all of the river rock out of it. And you got to replace it with mulch. You got to pull all of the rocks out, put them in a wheelbarrow, dump the wheelbarrow into a tip, and then you got to go and shovel mulch in there and level it and spread it and all that shit. And they'd hire a guy to come in and work, and he'd come in the morning and he'd quit before lunch and go, I don't know how the fuck you guys do this all day. People don't seem to understand that the reason you get paid is because you are delivering value to the business. And the reason the business pays you for it is because the value that you deliver to them is value they deliver to clients. And the clients pay them for that value. And that chain of delivering value to other people in exchange for something that you value. We use money for that, because that's how you can trade your work for rent, even though your landlord doesn't have any work that you need to do. Oh, I don't have anything you need to do. I get all of this money from people renting my apartments. I just pay somebody else to come do it. You could pay me to come do it. No, I'll pay somebody who knows what they're doing and can do the fucking job. People who understand finance, going back to the whole thing of finance and economics being different, people who understand finance can play games with the numbers and make everything look good. And they'll go, look, I delivered value because I could shuffle the numbers around until it says I delivered value. That's numbers on a piece of paper. Economics is understanding how that number came out of value being delivered. How every single person says, you know what? I'm going to make this decision because it's a good decision for me. And when you trace along that chain and everybody's made a decision that's good for them, and you get down to the end and you've made a decision that's good for you, everybody's happy. Everybody got something that they want. And there's a quantity of excess value that just kind of evaporates into the air because nobody wants anything that's worth less than they pay. There's really no such thing as a fair deal. It's like if I'm going to sell you a book, if I take a book and I try to sell it to you and I say, I'll sell you this book for $10. If you think that book is worth $10, you are not going to buy it. Because if the book's worth $10 and you have $10, trading the $10 for the book means you still just have $10 worth of stuff. You have to think the book is worth more than $10 or you won't give me $10 for it. Meanwhile, I have to think the book is worth less than $10 or I won't take $10 for it. And typically the difference is reading the book. If the book is worth $10, but I've already read it, it's worth less to me. I already have the information in the book. I don't need to read it again. Since I already have the information in the book, I can sell the book itself for $10. Meanwhile, the person with the $10 who's looking at the book goes, well, if I pay $10, not only do I get this book, but I can read that book and I can get the information that's in it. And that information has a value in addition to the $10. It's a question of what you can use it for. I've already read the book. I can't use it for much of anything. Somebody else hasn't read the book. They can use it for something. And that $10 book is worth the $10 because to them, it's $10 plus I get to read it. Whereas to me, it's $10, but I've already read it. And it's that inequity that leads to the trade. I feel like I'd rather have $10 than the book. You feel like you'd rather have the book than $10. There's no such thing as a fair trade. There is a mutually beneficial trade, but that's not the same thing as fair. You never get what the thing is actually worth to the other person. You get less than they think it's worth. And they get more than you think it's worth. That's always the way it works. That's always the way it fits together. And the interesting thing is that when you look at it, both of us got more value than was actually in the trade. Because it's that information asymmetry, it's that preference difference that says, I put more value on this than you do. So if we trade, there's more value. It's the same stuff, but there's more value because it impacts the future. It impacts what people do over time. I don't know if I am making any sense. And you know what? I don't fucking care. I really don't. This may be of value to people. It's definitely of value to me because I get to talk through my thoughts and my ideas, and I get to have a better grasp on them and be better able to describe them, better able to explain them to other people. Somebody will find this valuable. And the better I can explain it, the more valuable they will find it. If anybody watching this finds it useful, I'm glad you found it useful. I really am. If nobody finds it useful, I don't care. The things that you do have to have value to other people, but also to you. And you have to consider the possibility of, what if the things I do don't have value to other people? Like, what if you work in finance? Nobody fucking cares. What's wrong with you? Delivering value to other people is good for you. It's a good habit to get into. It's a good kind of person to be. Stealing makes you a bad person. Don't steal shit. I feel like not enough people are concerned about the person they are and the person they're going to be. They're not concerned about who they are. They're concerned about what they have. And that's really fucking problematic. Because humanity is not the sum total of what we have. It's the sum total of who we are. Be somebody worth being, for God's sake. Do something worth doing. Go somewhere worth going. That's the point. Okay, bye.